Portugal is a small country. It sits on the edge of Europe. It looks out at the vast Atlantic Ocean. For centuries, this ocean was a barrier. It was a place of mystery and fear. But Portugal turned this barrier into a highway. This small nation started an age of exploration. It connected continents. It created the first global empire. One surprising fact tells the story. For a time, the Portuguese language was the most widely spoken in the world. It was used in ports from Brazil. It was used in ports from Japan. This tiny country with its long coastline taught the world how to sail across the seas, and, in doing so, forever changed the map of our planet. This story of global impact begins with a simple truth. Portugal was looking for a way out. It was a small kingdom with a powerful neighbor, Spain. It could not expand easily by land. So, its people looked to the sea. They were fishermen. They were traders. They knew the winds. They knew the currents of their coast. This knowledge became their greatest weapon. They started to wonder what lay beyond the horizon. Was it possible to sail around Africa? Could they find a new way to the rich spice lands of the East? These questions were not just dreams. Imagine standing on a cliff at Sagres. This is the southwesternmost point of mainland Europe. The wind is strong. The waves crash against the rocks below. You can see nothing but water. In the 15th century, this was the edge of the known world. Long before Portugal became a nation of sailors, its lands were home to many different peoples. Early tribes like the Lusitanians lived here. They were fierce warriors who resisted invaders. Then came the powerful Romans. They arrived around the 2nd century BCE. They built roads, bridges, cities. They brought their language, Latin, which would later evolve into Portuguese. For centuries, this region was a part of the vast Roman Empire. You can still see their influence today in the ruins of temples, villas. A farmer named Vitalis, living near the city of Coimbra, would have seen his world change completely. His simple village becoming part of a mighty empire. New laws, new gods, a new language spoken in the streets. After the Romans, other groups came. The Visigoths, a Germanic tribe, ruled for a few hundred years. They adopted Christianity. Then, in the 8th century, a new power arrived from North Africa. The Moors, who were Muslim, conquered most of the Iberian Peninsula. They brought advanced knowledge of science, mathematics, agriculture. They built beautiful palaces and gardens. Their influence is still visible in the south and in many Portuguese words. For nearly 500 years, Christians and Muslims lived side by side, sometimes peacefully, sometimes in conflict. This set the stage for Portugal's birth. Christian kingdoms in the north began the long Reconquista. One of these territories was the county of Portugal, part of the Kingdom of Leon. Its ruler, Afonso Henriques, was ambitious. He did not want to be just a count. He wanted to be a king. He fought his cousin, the King of Leon, and the Moors. Finally, in 1143, he was recognized as the first king of Portugal. Portugal was born. Afonso pushed south and took Lisbon in 1147. Imagine a young soldier seeing the city walls, knowing their future depended on victory. The foundation of Portugal was laid with treaties and with swords. With its borders set by the 13th century, Portugal could look outward. The kingdom stretched from the northern mountains to the sunny Algarve. But it remained small and relatively poor on Europe's fringe. The richest trade routes were controlled by Italian middlemen, Venice, Genoa, moving spices like pepper and cinnamon from the Middle East, making them incredibly expensive. Portuguese kings and merchants dreamed of reaching the source themselves, bypassing the middlemen. This dream took shape around Prince Henry the Navigator, son of King John the Thirst. Henry wasn't a long-distance sailor, but he was the mastermind. In the 1420s, he set up a center in the Algarve, gathering map makers, astronomers, shipbuilders. He sponsored voyages to explore Africa, find West African gold, and try to reach India by sailing around Africa. The caravels were a marvel, small and light, yet strong. Their triangular lateen sails let them sail closer to the wind, beating the winds that had stopped earlier sailors. In Lisbon, a builder named João shaped planks for a new caravel. Progress was slow and dangerous. For years, sailors feared Cape Bojador, a point of no return. In 1434, Gil-Eanes sailed past it and returned. The psychological barrier was broken. Explorers pushed farther south. They reached the Cape Verde Islands. They reached Sierra Leone. With each voyage, they mapped the coast, set up trading posts for gold and slaves, and learned winds and currents. The age of great discoveries had begun, and Portugal was leading. Well, it was the start of something massive. After decades of slow progress, the pace of discovery quickened. The ultimate prize, a sea route to India. In 1488, Bartolomeu Dias was driven by a storm around Africa's southern tip. He had proven it was possible. He named it the Cape of Storms. King John II renamed it the Cape of Good Hope. Lisbon was electrified. The path to the east was open. Vasco da Gama took the next step. In 1497, he sailed with 4 ships to complete Dias's journey, all the way to India. The voyage was long and dangerous. Storms, disease, unknown waters. After rounding the Cape, they sailed up Africa's east coast. They found experienced pilots who knew the monsoon winds. With their help, they crossed the open ocean. Imagine a young sailor in May 1498 seeing India's coast rise from the horizon. After nearly a year, it was unbelievable. When da Gama reached Calicut, he made history. Europe linked to the east by sea. The local ruler wasn't impressed by their goods. But that didn't matter. The Portuguese now knew the way. In 1499, they returned with a small cargo worth more than 60 times the expedition's cost. Portugal sent more fleets, used superior ships and cannons to take key ports, built forts, and established a spice trade monopoly. Wealth flooded Lisbon. The late 15th and early 16th centuries became Portugal's golden age, a time of power and confidence. The small Atlantic nation had unlocked the wealth of the world because it dared to sail into the unknown. With the sea route to India secured, Portugal rapidly built the world's first global empire, connected by sea, not land. It stretched from South America to the Far East. In 1500, en route to India, Pedro Álvares Cabral sailed far west and accidentally reached Brazil. At first less vital than spices, Brazil later became Portugal's richest possession, with sugar, gold, and diamonds. In the east, the strategy wasn't vast conquest, but sea control, strategic ports and fortified trading posts. They took Goa in India as the eastern capital, captured Malacca to command the spice choke point, established Macau, and reached Japan. A Portuguese merchant in Malacca would see ships from across Asia under the gaze of a Portuguese fortress, a symbol of new maritime power. Spices, gold, silk, porcelain, and other luxuries flowed into Lisbon, transforming it into one of the world's richest cities and empowering the crown. Wealth funded magnificent architecture like the Jeronimos Monastery, in the Manueline style, ropes, anchors, sea creatures, a celebration of the sea and discovery. The empire wasn't only wealth, it drove cultural exchange. Missionaries spread Catholicism. Portuguese spread to Africa, Asia, and Brazil. New foods, words, and ideas came back to Lisbon. This was the beginning of a truly globalized world. For better and worse, the empire's connections formed a complex legacy of trade, conflict, and cultural mixing that endures. The small kingdom's web of sea lanes reshaped the world. No empire lasts forever. Portugal's golden age was brilliant but brief. Small population, vast commitments. Other European powers grew strong, Dutch, English, French, with more ships, people, resources, challenging Portuguese control. Portugal lost many Asian posts to the Dutch. The spice monopoly broke. Wealth slowed to a trickle. Then disaster. On November 1st, 1755, a massive earthquake struck Lisbon. one of Europe's strongest. Buildings crumbled, fires raged, and a tsunami flooded the city. Tens of thousands died. Imagine a shopkeeper named Sophia. In minutes, her world turned to ash. The quake devastated wealth and confidence. In the early 1800s, Napoleon invaded. The royal family fled to Brazil, moving the empire's capital to Rio in 1807, a turning point. Brazil, larger and wealthier, declared independence in 1822. Portugal lost its richest colony. The empire shrank, and the 19th century brought political and economic decline. The Great Age of Discoveries felt distant. Global ambition gave way to internal struggles, tinged with saudade. The 20th century brought more turmoil. In 1910, the monarchy fell. The First Republic was unstable. A 1926 coup led to Salazar's Estado Novo, decades of dictatorship and repression. While others decolonized, Portugal fought costly wars in Africa. By the early 1970s, the nation was exhausted. Change came peacefully on April 25, 1974. The Carnation Revolution. The dictatorship ended, colonies gained independence, and Portugal turned to Europe, joining the EEC in 1986.